IKEA is the largest furniture retailer in the world and one of the most widespread brands on earth, but this empire was almost destroyed before it even began. An entire industry joined forces against one teenager. They blocked his suppliers. They banned him from trade shows. They had one goal: erase him completely. What they didn't know was that every attack would backfire, and that the poor kid selling matches from his bicycle would outgrow them all. This is the real story of IKEA. Ingvar Kamprad was born in March 1926 in the rural Swedish province of Småland. He grew up on his family's farm called Elmtoryd, near the small village of Agunnaryd. Småland was one of the poorest regions in all of Sweden. The soil was rocky. The winters were brutal. Farmers worked twice as hard for half as much, and wasting anything was treated almost like a sin. But it was exactly this harsh place that created one of the sharpest business minds of the century. At just 5 years old, Kamprad noticed something strange about matches. A single box cost far more in his village than it did in bulk from Stockholm. So he did what no 5-year-old does. He bought them in bulk with the help of his aunt and resold them one by one to his neighbors. The profit was tiny, but the lesson was enormous. Buy big, sell cheap, and customers will always come back. He didn't stop there. He studied what his neighbors needed and expanded piece by piece. By his teenage years, he was selling fish, seeds, pens, and Christmas decorations from his bicycle, keeping careful track of every sale and every customer. Everything was going well, except for one problem nobody could see. Kamprad had severe dyslexia. Numbers and codes confused him. Reading was a daily struggle. In school, that kind of weakness could have crushed him. Instead, it would later create one of the most famous details in IKEA's identity, because a man who couldn't memorize product codes decided that every item his company sold would carry a real name instead. Names born from a struggling boy who couldn't memorize numbers. In 1943, at only 17 years old, Kamprad received a small cash gift from his father as a reward for good grades, earned despite his learning difficulties. Most teenagers would have spent it. Kamprad used it to register a company right there at his Uncle Ernst's kitchen table. He called it IKEA, his own initials combined with the first letters of Elmtoryd, the farm where he was born, and Agunnaryd, the village where he grew up. But here's what most people don't know. IKEA sold no furniture at all. For years, it was pens, wallets, watches, picture frames, and nylon stockings, all sold by mail order through printed catalogs that Kamprad wrote and distributed himself across rural Sweden. He delivered packages to the local train station on a milk truck because it was the cheapest option available. Every decision, no matter how small, was measured by one question: does this keep the price down? The business grew quietly until 1948, when Kamprad added one new product category that would change everything: furniture. Simple, cheap furniture made by small local workshops near his home. The response was overwhelming. Orders poured in faster than he could process them. And by 1951, Kamprad made a decision that shocked everyone around him. He killed every other product line: the pens, the stockings, the frames, everything, and went all in on furniture alone. That same year, he published the first true IKEA catalog. It looked like the beginning of something huge. Instead, it triggered a war. IKEA's prices were so low that the rest of the Swedish furniture industry saw them as a threat to their survival. Established retailers had comfortable margins, loyal suppliers, and decades of control over the market. Then this young outsider appeared, selling comparable furniture for a fraction of the price. So they decided to respond, not by lowering their own prices, but by destroying Kamprad completely. Manufacturers were pressured into refusing his orders. Suppliers who worked with him risked losing every other client they had. He was banned from industry trade fairs, and at one point, he resorted to sneaking into an exhibition by hiding in the back of a friend's car just to see what his competitors were showing. An entire national industry coordinated to strangle one young company before it could grow, and for most businesses, that would have been the end. No suppliers, no visibility, no allies. But the boycott made one critical mistake. It assumed Kamprad had no other options. He found two. If Sweden's factories refused to produce his furniture, he would look outside Sweden. In the early 1960s, Kamprad turned to Poland, where manufacturing costs were dramatically lower than at home. It was a risky, unusual move at the height of the Cold War, dealing with factories behind the Iron Curtain. But it worked. The move that was forced on him by his enemies allowed him to drop his prices even further. Think about that for a second. The boycott designed to make IKEA more expensive had just made it cheaper, and if he was banned from trade fairs, he didn't need them either. In 1953, he opened his own permanent showroom in the small town of Älmhult, where customers could see and touch every product before ordering. Nobody in the mail order business was doing that. Customers could finally compare quality with their own hands, and when they did, they discovered something surprising. Cheap didn't mean bad. His enemies had tried to close every door. Instead, they had forced him to build better ones. Then, in 1956, came a small accident that would change the furniture industry forever. During a catalog photo shoot, an employee named Gillis Lundgren was trying to fit a table into the trunk of a car. It wouldn't go in. Frustrated, he unscrewed the legs and laid them flat beside the tabletop. Kamprad watched this happen, and in that ordinary moment of frustration, he saw what nobody else could see. If furniture could ship disassembled in flat boxes, transport costs would collapse, shipping damage would nearly disappear, warehouses could hold triple the inventory in the same amount of space, and customers could take their furniture home the same day. No waiting, no delivery fees. The flat pack was born, furniture you assemble yourself at home with a simple sheet of instructions and a small metal key. Customers did part of the work, and in exchange, they paid far less. It became the single most important idea in the history of modern furniture retail. In 1958, the first true IKEA store opened in Älmhult. It was the largest furniture display in all of Scandinavia at the time, and from that moment, nothing could slow the company down. IKEA swept across Scandinavia in the 1960s, opening its now legendary Stockholm store in 1965, a massive circular building inspired by the Guggenheim Museum in New York. So many customers showed up on opening day that the staff couldn't handle the crowds, and the store let people walk directly into the warehouse to pull their own boxes off the shelves. What started as emergency crowd control became a permanent part of the IKEA experience. Self-service wasn't a strategy, it was an accident that worked. Then came Europe in the 1970s, then North America, Asia, and the Middle East. The stores became destinations in themselves, giant blue and yellow mazes with restaurants, play areas for children, and entire model homes built inside. Families didn't just shop at IKEA. They spent the whole day there. IKEA was no longer selling furniture. It was selling a lifestyle the whole world could afford. By the 2000s, its catalog was printed in more copies per year than nearly any publication in human history, translated into dozens of languages across dozens of countries. And through all of it, Kamprad remained famously, almost absurdly, cheap. One of the richest men alive drove the same old Volvo for decades. He flew economy class. He stayed in budget hotels. He collected the small salt and pepper packets from restaurants. He told employees to write on both sides of the paper. Visitors expecting a billionaire's mansion found a modest house and a man dressed like a retired farmer. Some of it was genuine habit from his Småland childhood. Some of it was carefully maintained image. Either way, the empire and the man were built from the same material. Total war on waste. But while the world was celebrating this perfect rags-to-riches story, a secret was sitting quietly in the archives of the Swedish Security Service. A file from 1943, marked secret, and what was inside would shake IKEA to its core. In 1994, Swedish journalists uncovered documents proving that during World War II, the teenage Kamprad had been an active member of Sweden's leading fascist party, Swedish Socialist Unity. And this was no casual flirtation. State intelligence had monitored him for months. They read his mail. They recorded that he was recruiting other young members into the movement, and that he wrote in 1942 that he missed no opportunity to work for the cause. When the story broke, Kamprad apologized publicly. He called it the greatest mistake of his life, youthful stupidity. He pointed to the influence of his German grandmother, who had admired Hitler openly. He wrote an open letter to IKEA's shocked employees asking for forgiveness, and many accepted it. The apology seemed sincere. The chapter seemed closed. It wasn't. In 2011, journalist Elizabeth Asbrink published new research showing the truth went far deeper than anyone knew. Kamprad hadn't just been a teenage member of a movement. For decades afterward, he maintained a close personal friendship with Per Engdahl, one of the most notorious fascist leaders in post-war Europe and an open Holocaust denier. Kamprad had even invited Engdahl to his wedding, and when Asbrink confronted the elderly billionaire face-to-face, expecting regret, his answer stunned her. He defended Engdahl. He called him a great man and said he would maintain that view for as long as he lived. He said he saw no contradiction at all, and here is the part that made it truly incomprehensible. Kamprad's closest lifelong friend was Otto Ullman, a Jewish refugee who had worked on the Kamprad family farm, a man whose own parents were murdered at Auschwitz. The same man held both of these truths his entire life, a deep loyalty to a fascist leader and a deep love for a Jewish friend whose family was destroyed by that very ideology. Sweden has never fully managed to reconcile them. The fallout was enormous. About a month after the revelations, IKEA donated $51 million to the United Nations Refugee Agency. At the time, the largest single private donation in the organization's history. Critics called it damage control. Supporters called it accountability. But the question never fully went away. Kamprad had promised in 1998 to put everything on the table, saying nothing would stay hidden. Yet the darkest details only came out through journalists years later, digging through archives he never mentioned. Why didn't he reveal it all himself when he had the chance? That question was asked asked again and again in Sweden. It was never answered. When Kamprad died in January 2018 at the age of 91, the debate was still unresolved. It remains unresolved today, and yet the empire he built keeps growing. Hundreds of stores, dozens of countries, more than 100,000 employees, billions in annual revenue.